Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Eventually got around to reading that, as well as Millionaire Next Door. And yeah, these guys that have immense wealth have multiple streams of income. So that's kind of why I got into real estate. I saw it as a safety net rather than a risky investment.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast. My name is Nathan with Undor Properties, and I'm one of 6 hosts who bring you conversations 3 times a week on a variety of topics around real estate, business, and personal motivation. And our goal with this podcast is to help you succeed in whatever target you're aiming at. We're all committed to finding the best and brightest people who aren't just talking about doing big things, but are actually taking the steps to achieve their dreams and wanting to help others along the way. And today is no different. I am super excited to be joined by Paul Lee at Leaf Investments. And Paul Lee has such a fantastic story to share. He's a great example of how you can be a father, a husband, have a W-2 job, multiple side gigs, a 6-figure side gig in exotic plants, invest in real estate, and all doing that while being successful, happy, fulfilled. And he shares all his tips and tricks on how to do that. So with that, let's just hop into the conversation with Paul Lee. All right, Paul, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on here, Nathan.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. So many great things that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm excited to hop in. But before we do that, Paul, why don't you give us a quick backstory? Who's Paul Lee? Where are you from? What do you do in life? What's your background? And then maybe what got you into real estate? Because I'm sure we're going to be touching on that a little bit.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, married, have a lovely wife, Allie, father to 2 beautiful kids, Judah and Maeve. Give a shout out because I know they're going to listen to this.
How old are they?
Judah. Hi, Maeve. Judah is 2.5 and Maeve is a month and a half. So she was just born.
Wow. So you got your hands full.
Yeah. Along with kind of real estate and my side hustle, I still have a W-2 job. I'm a corporate banking underwriter. Just basically look at the numbers that lenders bring in and, see if the deal works on a, cash flow and leverage perspective and, all that good stuff. Do side hustles. So real estate is one of them. Another one is I sell rare exotic plants here and there. But how I got into real estate, I was always around real estate. My family have invested in real estate historically, and they've also been burned by the 07-09 housing recession. It's weird because I was initially interested in real estate because they did it, but after that event, the recession, I kind of shunned real estate for a minute. But then, I kind of got back around to it after reading, Millionaire Next Door, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and realizing we really only had one income at the time, which was my W-2 income. My wife, we were both expecting, so wanted to kind of get more income streams here. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into everything.
Before we jump into the show, we wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by EveryREITool.com. Every REI Tool is the most comprehensive online catalog of resources for real estate investors and professionals. Whether you are looking for the best deal analyzer, the most loved syndication platform, fix and flip rehab calculators, dialers, lead generation solutions, rent collectors, or the next real estate book to read, every REI tool has it all. Quickly and easily find the best software, apps, services, books, podcasts, and courses to help accelerate and grow your real estate business by heading over to EveryREITool.com. And don't forget to sign up to get exclusive product reviews, promos, and discount codes. EveryREITool.com. Now, on to the show.
Very, very cool. So, was the primary motivation? Because, sorry, let me step back for a second because I find it very fascinating and interesting in your story, right? The fact that not only do you have a full time job, and I'm curious, does your wife work as well?
No, she does not. She's a homemaker, and that's a full time job in itself, a harder
Especially
one.
with the two and a half and 1 month old, you said, or something like that.
Right,
Crazy.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But no, so the what I wanted to ask and get to, I guess, is full time job, full time parent, full time husband, and you talked about at least a couple side gigs, and maybe you have more, right? Because you talked about the exotic plants, as well as real estate. What mindset or what made you get started in doing all these things, I guess, right? In the sense that for a lot of people, it would be like, well, I got my full time job. I'm busy all day doing that. And then I'm a husband, father, parent, whatever at home. And I'm busy doing that. And that's life. Done. Move on, turn the page, 30 years later, that's that. But you're doing real estate, you're doing exotic plants, right? What mindset were you in, or why are you, keeping yourself so busy, I guess?
Yeah, so I want to say that selling rare exotic plants was my first kind of taste of this supplemental income. To explain the story, so it was, 2020 to middle of 2022 where I sold rare exotic plants. I got into that because we were all mandated to stay indoors during COVID, and social media was flooded with these rare plants, and I got interested. I purchased one from a wholesaler in South America, and I was able to flip that for 2 to 3 times what I purchased it for. So I was like, "There's a great arbitrage opportunity here." So I kept repeating that.
Did you know anything about exotic plants, or was this like a COVID hobby, like all of us kind of started? Because it sounds like maybe there's opportunity everywhere, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. But I wanted to know if you were already into plants or if this just by happenstance you just created a six-figure business out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah, no, so no, I was not interested in plants. My wife was actually the one that was more interested in plants, but um, yeah, this whole COVID thing and these rare exotic plants, when you're purchasing plants that are hundreds, thousands of dollars, it's kind of scary because you want to make sure you know how to take care of them so they don't die. So yeah, didn't wasn't interested in plants before. Had to research, had to Google. I mean, it's the age of information right now, so you can basically do anything. You can look up how to change a water heater, or change a garbage disposal. So yeah, opportunities out there if you keep your eyes open for sure.
So you started that because you were looking for additional streams of income, right? And then how about real estate? Because sorry, we went off on a tangent because I was curious about the plant story there. So I kind of cut you off when we never got to the actual question, which was, what mindset were you in to be like take on all of these different projects, right?
Yeah, so I knew that during COVID these extremely high plant prices aren't going to sustain, especially after COVID and after the government pumped a bunch of stimulus into the economy. So I wanted to get to something more traditional, which is real estate. But yeah, being a corporate banking underwriter, one of the things we look at is kind of cyclicality and like trend risk. And I think these high prices for rare plants was definitely a trendy thing at the time. So that's kind of why I pivoted to real estate because I knew it was tried and true. If you find a good property, that'll cash flow every month. I mean, people always need somewhere to live. So that's kind of why I pivoted to real estate. I still sell rare plants here and there on the side, but that's kind of not my main side hustle.
And I wanted to ask you about real estate because I think when you were kind of introducing yourself earlier and telling us about your story, right, you talked about being burned in the '07, '09, recession and crash. What changed? How do you decide to go, quote, back into real estate if you got burned in the past?
Yeah, so I didn't get burned. I watched, my dad and my family members fire sale some of their properties, but what really got me back into real estate is basically running the numbers myself and you know seeing where kind of my baseline was. So my first property I purchased April 2021, um, and I can't kind of ran the numbers, and I put a draconian scenario where, if I just get the rents that I just purchased this property with, so I couldn't achieve, the projected rents that this broker was showing me, I would still be paying the same amount had I been renting. So at the time it was like 1400. So I was like, okay, if I'm stuck paying that, hey, at least I own something and I'm building equity. So I just ran the numbers myself, and yeah, it just made sense from a financial perspective. Another thing was that I eventually got around to reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. So my dad tried to push that book onto me when I was in high school, and again, I didn't want anything to do with real estate, anything to do with, even the name. I'm sorry, Robert, but Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, yeah, that sounds kind of corny, but eventually got around to reading that as well as Millionaire Next Door. And yeah, these guys that have immense wealth have multiple streams of income. So that's kind of why I got into real estate. I saw it as a safety net rather than a risky investment for me.
Yeah, and I don't know if we said this yet, right? But I think if I'm not mistaken, that you getting back into real estate was that first property was a quadplex, I think, right? And you were essentially house hacking, right? Where you lived in one unit and then you had the other three units rented out.
Correct. So yeah, purchased the property using an FHA loan, 5% down on a 4 unit, and we lived in one unit and renovated the others. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And you said this was in 2021, right?
Yes, correct.
And when you wanted to get into real estate, was it always part of the plan to house hack like you've been doing or you did? Or was that just, again, happenstance? And, why did you want to house hack versus look for like a single family home like most people do?
Yeah. So I wanted to house hack 4 unit because that was the most I could leverage the favorable rates at the time. So it's kind of like a private equity firm where they purchase a company for as much debt as possible and as little equity as possible. They go in, they fix up the operations, and then they either cash out, refinance, or sell it to another entity. But I found myself kind of in that position where we can purchase this huge property for 5% down. The rates at the time for FHA were 2.75%. So had I bought a single family home, I feel like I wouldn't be able to leverage that cheap debt as much. So yeah, really focus on kind of 4 units. Yeah.
Yeah, 2.75, man. When you look at today, we miss
Yeah,
those days.
exactly.
After that first quadplex, what did you do in the real estate? You're on the real estate front. Did you move on to, or did you stop there and call it a day, or what happened after that?
No, so this first real estate investment was probably a home run. So purchase it for, just to give you the numbers here. Purchase it for 650,000 April 2021. With an FHA loan. So with for the viewers, with an FHA loan comes with a pretty costly PMI, FHA private mortgage insurance. So once we hit 20% equity or 80% LTV in the property, we refinanced it. I want to say a couple of months or a year later, and it appraised for 820,000. Rents, yeah, rents continue to increase because of the whole COVID situation. Um, and then we again got a appraisal because we were doing a HELOC, and the property appraised for 950,000. And we got a pretty sizable HELOC from that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the numbers. And getting back to your question, after that, we wanted to purchase another 4 unit, just because we saw that was the most scalable. We wanted to use an FHA loan again because we just refinanced out of one. But when we were trying to get this property, we were hit on some roadblocks. One, which was we had to pass this thing called an FHA self sufficiency test, which we didn't pass.
What's that? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's a little known thing, and I like to post it on Reddit and all the other kind of real estate forums. But if you're purchasing a triplex or a quadplex, um, 75% of the gross appraiser determined rents have to exceed the pity payment, so principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. If it doesn't, then you can't close on it.
Even if you qualified personally?
Yeah, yeah. So they don't look at the borrower at all. So it's in the name. They really want to know that the property is self sufficient by itself because if you're owner occupying one of these. So again, this only pertains to triplexes and fourplexes. So if you're using an FHA loan on a single family or a duplex, then you don't have to really
It
mind
doesn't
this
apply.
this
Okay.
test.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So
Interesting.
it's really random. Yeah, everywhere I looked, they didn't really talk about this, but encountering that, doing my own research, I was like, wow, this is actually really a thing. So this test really effectively weeds out 60% of all the 3 unit, 4 unit properties out there for people to house hack with an FHA loan.
And sorry, so you said you did not qualify when you did this the first time?
Yeah, I did not qualify. So thankfully, before I went with the FHA route, I called a couple of lenders, um, got a couple of scenarios. I went to find non-conforming lenders that you could put 10 to 15%, but they have these crazy high rates. But then eventually, I landed on a credit union that was offering a 10% down with no PMI, and the rate was a 6.1%. So I was like, this is. I had to double check. I had to ask, are you sure this is real? And they kept saying yes. So I was able to get the fourplex that I was under contract for. Um, it was an investment property purchase, a loan. So we didn't have to necessarily live there, but eventually we did move in because it's a bigger unit. And yeah, so I think eventually our plan is, after living there for a year or so, we're gonna refinance once rates, if they do come down, into a owner occupied multifamily loan here.
Yeah, very cool. And then on the real estate front, do you plan on continuing, rinse and repeat, finding the next fourplex and potentially moving into that at one point and then house hack that? Or what's the plan? Or do you have plans?
Yeah, so I feel like we're kind of done with that just because of how big our family is now. We It might be in the future if we find a good one that's a sizable size. But I think the next property will probably be a investment property loan purchase. With a HELOC, with cash, we still have to figure that out. But yeah, I think we're done with the house hacking. But we were privileged to be in that spot to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. And I'm curious with all these different things that you've touched on, house hacking, you got, 8 units, two quadplexes, a six-figure plant business, or at least it was at one point, successful, family, kids, wife, W-2. What's your favorite success story that you like to share, with all of, what you've been through? And maybe before you answer that, sorry, what does success mean to you today? And maybe how has that changed over time?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. My wife and I talk about this all the time. So, when I graduated college, success for me was wearing a suit, going traveling everywhere, and having a high figure salary, being like a senior vice president, executive at a company. That was success to me. But I think COVID, having a family, being able to work from home, success is having time freedom to, spend time with my kids. I don't really care what my title is. I want to be able to, spend time with my kids, spend time with my wife, go hiking whenever I want to. So that's kind of what this journey has been about. Is that time freedom. I'm not doing this to get rich necessarily and buy luxury cars and stuff. This is really just have that time freedom.
And is there an end goal for you? Is it like I'm just asking because a lot of I guess podcasts, YouTube, social media forums, online, people, folks, and whatnot talking about real estate. It's always so that you can quit your job tomorrow, right? And for some people, that's the sole motivation. For others, it's no, this is just another income stream. It's generational wealth. If I quit one day, I quit one day. If I don't, I don't. I'm perfectly happy. And I'm curious if for you, you have an end goal with, I guess, your life, right? If time freedom is so important to you.
Yeah. So I don't at the moment I don't have an end goal. One of the initial goals I have is for my side hustles in real estate to fully replace my W-2 income. But if the opportunity presents itself, I'm gonna take it for sure. So yeah, and again, it's also a balance between how much time does this take away from me? Can I hire someone to do this for me? So yeah, if the opportunity, if there's a good property, then yeah, we're definitely going to purchase it, or a business or something.
Very cool. And so, in all these things that you've done, right? What's your favorite success story that you like to share?
Yeah, so my wife has probably heard this a million times, but it's definitely that plant story. Because it's just such a random story for me. Selling rare exotic plants to enthusiasts all across our nation. And I think the way that it happened is very unusual as well because, a lot of people wanted plants, but they were sold out everywhere. So the loophole, and I'm sure people have actually reached out to me to find who the wholesaler is, how I did this, because a lot of people wanted to get into this during like the height of everything. But the secret for me was I found a way to get to the wholesaler, even though their website, all the plant stock was sold out. I found a way to get to him that was outside of the website. So I called him. I was able to make reservations to get these plants. So I was first in line. I got the stock. I was selling them at like 2 to 3 times what I was buying them for. And then, eventually I was growing my own plants. So that's kind of where the profits really soared. Yeah. Cause so when I purchased these plants, I cut a little piece of it so I could grow my own. And then that in itself had no cost. It was purely profit. And that's kind of where everything soared. So yeah, it's such a lucrative and crazy story for me. So I think that's my favorite.
I'm just curious because congratulations, by the way, on the success because that's pretty fantastic coming out of nowhere, seemingly, right? To get to like a massive success like this. But where did you sell these? Was it did you build your own website and online presence, or was this like Shopify, Etsy, Pinterest type thing? How did that work, and how did people find you?
Yeah, so my main selling point was on Facebook Marketplace and these plant enthusiast groups. Um, and then I also had my own Etsy store, which sold a bunch. But yeah, these Facebook groups were, yeah, where I sold most, if not all, my plants.
Very, very cool. And what would you say was the most valuable lesson that you learned from this success story of yours?
Yeah, so I would have to say the most valuable is just take risks. If you see an opportunity, just go for it. I think the first plant purchase wholesale that I had to put as money was probably I had to pay out of pocket like $6,000 for a bunch of plants, and I'm
Wow.
like, okay, yeah, when it actually got to our apartment at the time, I'm like, what am I doing? I have all these like random rare exotic plants that are hundreds of dollars. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to take a chance. It seems like, a pretty solid idea, but yeah, it turned out really well. So take chances when you see them for sure. If there's a good opportunity.
Very cool. I love that. How about if you don't mind sharing, do you have an incredibly difficult time in your life or story that you don't mind sharing with the audience, and then kind of maybe what mindset you were in or what helped you kind of get out of that, situation?
Yeah. So I think one really difficult time was probably in the beginning. So when we just purchased this fourplex, I had to renovate a unit. This was in Colorado Springs, which is like an hour south of Denver, and we were living in Denver at the time. We just had our firstborn, Judah, and I had to drive, a lot of days to do renovations and sometimes sleep in the unit. So that was a really difficult time because I feel like I could do everything, but I wasn't really focused on the time it would take, or I was more focused on the cost. So right now, I'm more. Thankfully, we have our family down here, so it's easier to do the renovations. But if I could replay that, I would probably hire out and just bake that into the cost for the property. So yeah, that's kind of yeah, a difficult time for us.
Yeah, I would. I was about to ask, why didn't you hire out? And it sounds like that's exactly what you learned and what you will do next time.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and if you could go back in time, Paul, to when you were younger, what would you do differently? Maybe to kind of, I don't know if it's fast track or I don't know. I don't like that term necessarily, but so I don't know how to ask this question very well right now. But how, what would you do differently to kind of get to where you want to be in life, right, from a success perspective?
Yeah. So what I've learned from all this is that being entrepreneurial, especially in America, is that's kind of the fast track to wealth and getting a lot of yeah, getting a lot of income because there's so many opportunities out there. You hear people flipping couches for absurd amounts of money. So if I were if I could talk to, a recently graduated Paul, I would say, focus on your W-2 job, but also look into kind of these entrepreneurial side hustles because you never know what's going to take off. And um, yeah, you never know what's going to take off. And, you kind of have that safety of the W-2 income.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. That's fantastic. How about what would you say your secret sauce is, right? Obviously, again, we've said this a few times now, or I've said this a few times now. You've obviously achieved success in a lot of dimensions in your life, right? You're doing a lot of different things at the same time, yet it doesn't seem like or sound like you're grinding yourself to death, right? So you seem to be perfectly happy and be a present father and husband and successful, entrepreneur. But so what's your secret sauce? What's your key to success in managing, all these different projects? What do you do to be different and achieve all this success?
It's two things. So for my real estate and the plant side hustles, it's customer service. You want to make sure, your tenants, your customers that you sell the plants to, they're happy. So, if a tenant requests a maintenance request, we try to respond, within minutes to hours. We keep them updated on, when a contractor is going to stop by or when we can address this. So we really focus on customer service and our tenants. I know some, landlords will kind of say this tenant is nagging or kind of blow it off, and that's kind of how you get deferred maintenance and tenants that move out. You get high vacancies. So customer service for our real estate and plant business side. I think for myself and my wife and our family personally, it's we we live a modest life. So because we live a modest life, we have the capital to go after these opportunities. We still drive a used 2015 Honda CRV. We share that between my wife and I. We have a budget. We buy great value things from Walmart. So yeah, I think living like a Spartan and having that capital to pursue opportunities is our secret sauce for sure.
And I smile because the I can relate to the single used car for a family of four because that's our situation. And more often than not, when I explain that to people around me, they look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, what? You have two young kids that you're shuttling around and you only have one car for the family? It's like, yeah, yeah, we make it work. It
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
Fantastic, Paul. So I want to be mindful of your time here and start getting you out of here. I got a last few couple of questions for you here before we let you go. What book recommendation do you have for our audience?
Yeah, so I'm not a I don't read a lot of books, but one book that I do recommend for, people starting out or want the motivation is Millionaire Next Door. It really kind of gives you the statistics on, what millionaires and how they, what their characteristic traits are and how they live. Most of them live fairly modestly. I think one example that they gave is, you invite a bunch of millionaires into a room and you have the expensive stuff, but they'll always go after the free stuff, whether it be like water or like free snacks. So yeah, it's a great book. they're not, it's a concept of stealth wealth essentially. So I love that book.
Yeah, it's a great read. Fantastic read. How about a piece of software, a tool, an app, something that you use on a regular basis that's helped you reach success in life?
Yeah. So I think the main one that comes to mind is for real estate. We like to use this thing called rentometer. So when you're investing in real estate, one of the most important things is to understand what market rents are in the area you're investing. So that we use that to see, and that kind of pulls rents from Craigslist and a bunch of other areas, and aggregates them and shows you basically what market rents are at the time. So we love that to just get an estimate. We even go deeper. They kind of show you the source. We click on if it's a listing, what condition the unit's in to see, if we can get that rent. So we use that a lot, Rentometer.
Fantastic. And last question here, Paul, then I'll let you go. How can our audience help you and reach out to you?
Yeah. As far as helping me, I feel like I think I'm good right now. If you could give me a follow on Instagram at Leaf Investments, LEAF Investments, that would be appreciated. But yeah, I feel like I want to be in a position to help others more so than, them helping me. I love answering questions, whether it's about real estate or businesses. So yeah, feel free to shoot me a DM and we can connect.
Awesome. Fantastic, Paul. Well, with that, I want to thank you again for your time. What a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you and appreciate your time here, Paul. And with that, I will wish you a fantastic rest of your day. And why don't you shout out your kids and wife again?
Hi, Judah. Hi, Maeve. Hi, Allie.
I love it. All right, Paul, you take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today and being part of this fantastic conversation with Paul Lee. I love his story, and it's a clear example of how you could be a husband, a father, a W-2 employee, have side gigs, invest in real estate. And as always, we'll make sure all the important links from the show will be in the show notes. And now, if you found any value in any of our content, we'd love for you to help us spread the word. If you could do us a favor and share this with someone else, your support means a ton to us, and it really does help. And if you could go like, subscribe, leave a comment, 5-star review, we'd be incredibly grateful. And of course, and as always, if you are interested in starting your real estate investing journey, you can always go and check out our free Ready for Real Estate checklist that will hold your hand and help you get started in your investing journey. Just head over to readyforrealestatechecklist.com and you'll get all the tools you need to get started. Thank you so much for your time, and until the next one.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.